Painters in ancient China were cultivating a relationship with color long before most civilizations. As their color palette expanded, so did the meaning behind its use. They found inspiration in the world around them, particularly in the yellow soil of the Loess Plateau, the origin of Chinese civilization. From impressions of the natural world came an expression of cultural symbolism. The ancient Chinese painters used color to represent the energies of nature, and at the center of this theory was yellow, a color exclusively reserved for their emperor. The mosaic art of the Byzantine Empire was intended to preserve the stories of their sacred saints. This responsibility placed high demand on these Roman artists and their colors. Imagine the sophistication of their creative process. Look at the way they create subtle variations in color, light, and shadow. The preservation of this work through the centuries assured its influence over future generations of artists, especially those employed by the church. This style of blending imagination, impressionistic observation, and symbolic meaning through color is at the root of so much Western art. By the 15th century, the Italian Renaissance painters had mastered tonality and color modulation. They were painting massive and epic images at insane levels of realism. While symbolism was still at the root of their compositions, the images were stripped of decorative elements seen in earlier religious artworks. To me, the paintings of the Renaissance have the weight and drama of a scene from a movie. But this wasn't the apex of realistic painting. That didn't come until artists like Titian in the mid-16th century started to really focus their use of color. Titian was using color to give character and virtue to the main subjects of his compositions. Look at the two figures posed in this crowd of twisting bodies. Localizing and focusing color was a brilliant way of bringing symbolism to a realistic style of painting. The Renaissance's theory of color embedded itself so deep in the collective consciousness of the art world. For hundreds of years, this aesthetic is what people pictured when they thought about art and color. But by the 1800s, the culture of art was ready for a whole new perspective. In 1810, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe published the book Theory of Colors. Goethe was an author of emotional literature, but he also had an equal interest in visual art and its relationship with science. This new book was intended to change the world's perception of color. Goethe's theory sought to validate the scientific function of human imagination in response to the phenomenon of light and color. The warmth of the setting sun and the coolness of the Earth's rising shadow, to him were evidence of not just the fracturing of white light, but of humanity's poetic intuition. Goethe's theory is wrapped up in his version of the color wheel. On first glance, it doesn't seem to be unlike the rational framework of earlier color theories. But here, Goethe's assigned allegorical qualities to each field of color. Red is beauty, orange is nobility, yellow is good, green is usefulness, blue is commonality, and violet is the unnecessary or spiritual. Needless to say, the scientific world found no academic value in his research into optics. But his studies of color remain influential to this very day, and it's not just artists who connected with Goethe's theory of color. All kinds of people were into it. I think technologist John Gage put it best when he said, Goethe argued there is no color in the physical world. There are only patterns of light and dark. And these patterns are a sensation produced by our very souls.